back to Positive Parenthood. We are going to talk right now about why order matters for your kids and the ways that you can sort of let them know, give them some organization, some structure, some routines, so that some of the anxieties around the shifts that are happening right now in the world will come down and be soothed. Um, so, what we know is that for children, not knowing what is next can be really disorganizing. And when I say organizing, disorganizing, I don't exactly mean like a clean room or everything in its place. I mean, feel a feeling of organization. So, like being able to access the most part of their brain and make sense of their world, having the capacity to think about something and talk rationally and use language to interact with their parents and family. So it's great when kids are organized. And when children are organized, they're more able to cooperate. They have higher capacity to do stuff for themselves. So one of the things that we can do that is by creating for them an organized world. So I just want you to think for a moment for yourself. Most adults, myself included, use a number of supports to organize themselves, to let them know what's happening. So I'm going to tell you what I do. And as I tell you this, I want you to think for yourself because there's many different strategies and you probably use one of them. So I am a person that I like live and die by my Google Calendar. And if it's not on my Google Calendar, I'm not going to show up. So I really need that and I color code everything. So the color coding is really, really helpful for me. I respond super well to that. I color code things in other areas of my life too. For example, my bookshelf. I have a big whole wall bookshelf, and I have never organized books by sort of their title or their authors because that's not ever how I remember them. How I remember them is like, oh, that book with the pink cover. So I organize them to reflect the way that I think about the world. I also love to make lists. So if I am really stressed out, I'm like making a list, and I usually include on that list a few things I've already done so I can check them off. So I get this feeling of like, I'm doing it, I'm in it. And there's many adults who use some kind of strategy like that, right? So you might use a big whiteboard. You might be a list maker. You might be somebody who relies on Google Calendar. You might be a paper calendar person. Whatever you are, I bet you have some kind of system in place that allows you to get through a big, intense work day. Okay, so knowing that, those kinds of systems can be very calming for us, right? So, like many people, if you're like, I have this gigantic thing to do and I don't even know where to start, okay, let's make a list. Let's do some sequencing. What comes first? What is next? What is the middle? Let's make a plan. And that planning then gives us a sense of control and a sense of agency and a sense of capacity. I can do this, right? And it's the same for our children. So if you think about most of our kids, oftentimes they don't actually have that kind of structure. They might not know what's going to happen the rest of the day. We might forget to tell them that they have a meeting with their teacher or a lesson on Zoom, or that grandma or grandpa's going to come over and take them for a walk. And so when those things do happen, they can then be experienced as like intrusion, right? Because they didn't expect them. So what we're talking about is how to partner with our children so that they have a sense of order, and so that that sense of order is going to be soothing. So we really want to build in schedules, calendars, routines. Okay, so for a lot of families, that's like starting the day all together. So right now, it might be that mom or dad doesn't have to go on a long commute, or babysitter's not coming, or carpool isn't running. So what is the one organizing thing that you can do for your family in the morning that you can do every day? So in my family, that is, one parent gets up with them and gives them breakfast. The other parent has that morning to take a shower, like have a little bit of time, sleep in a little bit if you want, and we alternate. Okay, so they know it's either mommy morning or daddy morning. Okay, and then we all eat breakfast together. So we all sit at the table and we have breakfast together and we talk about what we're going to do. And we do that every morning. Um, and then we do a Zoom story time that we host with other families. Okay, so um, the rest of the day is pretty ambiguous, but we always do those things. And just having that is organizing. So they'll ask, is today a Zoom class day? Um, and it's always a Zoom class day if it's Monday through Friday, okay? But they still ask on the weekends, and what they're doing when they ask that question is they're trying to wrap their heads around what their day is going to look like so that they can reasonably move through it. Super good for them, right? So knowing what is next and knowing what to expect. So when we think about calendars and routines and doing things sort of this thing and then this thing always the same, I want you just to think about your school because schools do this so very well. So regardless of how old your child is, whether they are in kindergarten or preschool or younger than that even, or in middle school or upper elementary or high school or college, all of these schooling spaces have a lot of routines and supports built in that allow the children to cooperate. So, like you go to an elementary school, it's recess, and then the bell rings. And I was at a school recently where the bell rings, and then everybody takes a knee, and then the bell rings again, and then everybody goes to their line. Okay, so they know what's going to happen. Okay, and they know when they hear that bell, okay, basketball game is done, hopscotch is done. Now I'm gonna be still, and then they hear the second one, they go put their balls away, they go get in line. Okay, so there's a cadence to that happening, and they're using a support in order to enable that routine to happen. And that's kind of what we want to do at home. Of course, you're not going to have a bell schedule in your home, right? But we're moving towards wanting to incorporate the best parts of those kinds of spaces into your home. So maybe let's imagine that your child is in elementary school and maybe you've got like a fourth grade boy and he always plays basketball at recess. And when he hears that bell, he's fine. Basketball's over. He cooperates. But when he gets home, maybe he's home now. So maybe he does basketball before dinner, plays, in your yard. And then it's dinner time and you call him to come to dinner and he consistently doesn't come. So those are the kinds of places that we want to build those routines in. So clearly what you're doing is not working. And oftentimes for so many parents, what will happen in this situation is that the parent starts to ask more and more and more and nag and nag and nag and say it again and again and again. And unfortunately, that just makes it less likely that the child is going to comply. And that's what the research tells us. So the more times you ask the child to do something, the less likely they are to do it. How's that for a parenting challenge? Okay, so we want to build in a routine there. And it might be that child needs some supports, just like we have work supports or calendars or routines or lists that we use at work. And those supports can come in different forms. I usually like to think of them as auditory or visual. And in my 12-week course, we really delve deep into these different kinds of supports and how to do all of them. So when you're giving, let's talk about visual supports first. When you're giving a child a visual support, these are super great for just everyday kinds of things like coming in from basketball or remembering to brush your teeth or getting dressed and then having breakfast or the other way around, however you do it in your family. So there's many ways to do it. They do not have to be fancy, okay? You can do something really, really simple. So for example, you might get an 8.5 by 11, put 6 Post-its on it, and then on each Post-it, draw a stick figure of what it is the child's gonna do. Now, if your child is older, you could write the thing, or they could write it, right? You could do it together. But if your child is little, you can draw a stick figure for like time with mommy, somebody who looks vaguely like mommy, okay? And maybe it's just like mommy has short spiky hair and pink shoes because she loves pink. And then maybe you have a different one for time with daddy where it's like daddy has straight gray hair and he is holding a dog leash because he likes to walk the dog. Okay, so super, super simple. Doesn't, don't stress yourself out about drawing these things. It can be really simple. And then you look at that with the child and maybe you take each post-it off. Oh, we did that. Let's move it. What's next? And then they're going to pull the next thing off. Okay, so other ways to do that are to just draw a schedule out, and you can write activity 1, activity 2, lunch. Okay, other ways to do it are some people will have kids like take like 10 popsicle sticks, put a little tag board on the top of the popsicle stick, draw the activity, and then we pull out what activities we're going to do for the day, and you can line them up. Which order are you going to do them in? Are you going to do this first or that first? You might make a schedule with Velcro, okay? It may be that you struggle with one particular area, like say getting dressed. And then you're going to make a schedule that's or like a visual support that's always the same. So it might have a picture of a shirt and then an arrow, and then a picture of some underwear and then an arrow, and then a picture of some shorts and then an arrow, and then a picture of some socks, so that the child can move through. You can laminate these and use a whiteboard marker. You can redraw them every day. They can even just be like chicken scratch on paper. Simple, or they could be fancy. If you love making fancy schedules, make a fancy schedule. If you have an older child, they may love to use Google Calendar. You might get them a day planner. You might have them draw a picture of their day or make a list and check things off. But some kind of way, and think about yourself, like what are the ways that you do this? And then what might work for your child? And depending on how old they are, you can play with it and you can see what works for them and try it. And it might be that one doesn't work, and that's okay. Just try the next one. Or try a different one, or maybe enroll your child in thinking about what might work for you? Do you think you would like, to do it this way or that way, or a big poster or a little poster, or, so enroll them in sort of thinking about what it is that's going to be helpful. The other kind of support that we often give kids is auditory. So if you think about yourself, if you're somebody who does like POMs, where you work for 25 minutes and you have a 5-minute break, and there's like a ding, right? So when you hear that ding, your time is up and you get to have your little break. And there's other ways to think about auditory support. So if you go to a preschool, you might hear the teacher start to sing the cleanup song, and then all the children clean up. You might have a cleanup song if you have really young children. And while it doesn't have to be a song or a ding, building in these sort of sing-songy, sweet musical supports for your children, we call that melodic intonation, is really powerful, and it will work if your child is 2 or 12 or 22. Of course, you're not going to sing a cleanup song with a 12-year-old, right? But maybe with your 12-year-old, you're going to ask them what their favorite song is or what they think the cleanup song should be. And then you're going to maybe program it on Alexa so that every day after dinner, the cleanup song that they pick, okay, it could be Lizzo. Doesn't matter who it is. We're just going to build the association between that song and cleaning up. And then maybe when that song is over, we're done cleaning up. Or maybe we did 2 songs, whatever sort of works for your family. If you have a child who is coming off an activity, timers are really, really great. So for the same reason, they're going to ding, and then it's not going to be on mom to do all the nagging or dad to do all the nagging. The timer has gone off. So now basketball's done, timer's off, it's time for dinner. It's much more organizing for your child than constant requests without sort of the knowledge about what's happening. And you might draw a basketball and a timer so that on your schedule, so that this is my basketball time, then the timer's going to go off, and then I'm going to go to dinner. Key here is really making sure that you are consistent across time. So you want to use the same visual or auditory supports for the same routines and revisit those with a high level of consistency for your kids. That will help them sort of learn what the routine is and begin to participate in it. Thanks so much for being with me. Please know that building routines and helping your child know what to expect is going to be very organizing and really reduce the amount of stress that they're experiencing through this time, which is going to make your life easier, because it's more pleasant and joyful to parent a child who is less stressed. Um, all the cooperation and calm I am sending you from our family chambers.